Hello, I'm Eric Snodgrass, and thank you for watching this brief ag forecast brought to you by Nutrien Ag Solutions. I'd like to start off with doing a little evaluation of the European model's performance so far this year. So we're going to go back to a forecast issued on the 6th of January that looked out over the time period of the 6th of January all the way through the 21st of February, or today when I'm recording this. What you're looking at here across North America are the precipitation anomalies, or differences from normal, that were being forecast by the models. It included some drier conditions, of course, out in the western part of the United States, drier conditions from Texas into the western Corn Belt, but very active right into this part of the Mid-South, the Ohio River Valley, the Tennessee Valley into New England. Now, when you look at this particular map, let's go ahead and take a look at where things set up on the rank. We've had record dryness in California, Nevada, southern Oregon, but overall, the precipitation patterns were picked up on very well by the models here from Texas through the Central Plains back into the northern high plains right into this area, and even through the Midwest, picked up very well on the active pattern right in through here. And the reason why I bring this up is because I do rely heavily on some of the model forecasts. And when I look back and see decent performance of this, it gives me some confidence in using it as we look forward. So why don't we go ahead and do that? First, a couple things have been changing as of late. You know, we've been monitoring our La Nina, which is fading right now out here in the Central Pacific. It's got a complementary pattern here right along the west coast of North America where there is some cooler water that has at times been getting cooler right here off the Baja. We've remained cool in the Gulf of Alaska. But what's going on right now is as the La Nina fades, it occasionally just gives us these big pushes of very La Nina-like weather behavior. And we're seeing that right now. Very strong trade winds are forecast this week right here along the equator. And that's what we typically get when there is a strong La Nina. Now, because of this all winter long, we've seen drought expand across much of the United States. And as you look here, this is the latest drought monitor update. We still have about 71% of the country in some stage of drought. And the concern is that if that La Nina continues to keep a pretty tight grip on the pattern, it will continue to rob us of a strong subtropical component of the jet stream that would come in through here or in through here and allow that drought in those areas to continue to expand, because we did see, let's go take a look at this real quick, we did see that over the last month, drought has expanded in parts of the Central Plains. Look at Nebraska, South Dakota, even western Iowa. And there's a place right in through here in Iowa, northern Illinois, Wisconsin that is extremely dry as well. So we want to look out and just see if we expect anything to shift here. Now, there's some good news. We did finally bring in some snow into this region, and this is the last 3 days worth of snowfall through early this morning here on Monday. And coming out of parts of Montana, right here along the border between North and South Dakota into Minnesota, we did pick up in some places 6 to some locations here up to 18 inches of snow. And this hit at the Cascades first. But that's an area that through last Friday, just take a look, this is a region that has really missed out on a lot of snow this winter. And that really sits right along the Missouri River watershed. Now, thinking about all of that, and especially looking into this region, I want to show you some of the latest data we've got here from the CPC. This was released at the end of last week, but it does show us that the models that the CPC uses for guidance were projecting drought expansion in this area of Nebraska, unfortunately. They were expecting improvement from eastern Texas to the lower Mississippi River Valley. But when you take this and go from the monthly outlook, which again, this is for the month of February, take it to the seasonal outlook, there's going to be some concern about the extent of drought going into spring. So what we want to do now is we want to just give an updated forecast for March and see how things are expected to play out. I'm just going to stay right here on the CPC page and go to their week 3, week 4 forecast. Now, during that time period, they have a very La Nina-like view to this. Mild to the south, repeated shots at colder air coming into the north. They got above average precipitation for the Pacific Northwest and a very active Ohio River Valley storm track. It'll be drier south. This is La Nina to the T. So we have to ask, is La Nina going to be the dominant teleconnection going forward? And I think it will be a part of it, but we need to observe the fact that the MJO is over the Indian Ocean now, and it's moving through phases 4, 5, and into phase 6 with time. So that means it's going from the Indian Ocean north of Australia. Now, this is not a common place for the MJO to be when there is a La Nina. All right, so I just want you to know that these two things are kind of competing against one another with respect to time. La Nina typically gives us MJO values that are over here on this side of the chart. So what this means is if the La Nina is sweeping through these phases, that could this possibly give us a breakdown of that ridge? I mean, you know, I've been saying this for 3 weeks now, haven't I? That we keep getting these signals to break down the ridge that's been over the west, move it back here. but persistence continues to win that battle. But should it do that, all right, we would expect better precipitation in places that really need it. So for example, from March 8th, the end of next week, all the way into February 8th, we see that the models are putting these two pieces together, keeping this area quite active, bringing in better moisture from Northern California through the Pacific Northwest, backing that ridge up, all right? But unfortunately, without the subtropical component of the jet, drier in Southern California, the Four Corners states, and the models went very aggressive over the Cotton Belt, keeping things very dry in through here, and that is just a major concern for me. Now, we're looking simply at the model output. What I think is most critical with this forecast is to see if we can break down the ridge in the west. Because if that does occur, this is way too dry. We'll see better moisture in this area. That's what we're going to have to watch carefully. Now, right now, things are very active across the country, but you can see the regions that have been in drought by looking at the large area in New Mexico, Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas, Colorado that have right now red flag warnings. Places that have been very wet. This is a region now where we've got flood watches out in place. And the National Weather Service just issued this afternoon. We're going to talk about an ice storm coming in through here. The west is very active due to a deep trough, so it puts a lot of snow in the west. Freeze watch out for the Central Valley of California. But there's going to be some brutally cold air coming in behind this system that's finally moving on off to the east today. And I'll show you that in just a second. That's prompted all these winter weather advisories, winter storm warnings, and right into their blizzard warning. So let's get into it. Right now, the concern I have is that there's some storms popping up in this part of Texas late in the afternoon on Monday. And the models, along with the Storm Prediction Center, are expecting them to kind of grow downscale right into this area. By the time we get into the day tomorrow, on Tuesday, the severe weather threat's going to move here over the Mid-South and the lower Mississippi River Valley. I'd like to show you that by going right to the high-res NAM model. So, late this afternoon, we're seeing those storms pop up right here, and then you can see, watch the storms coming out of Texas as I rock back and forth. They're expected to continue to grow kind of right here over the Red River Valley of the South into this part of Oklahoma. But at the same time, north of it, we're going to have a region in through here that we're going to be concerned about ice. And this whole system, look how tightly spaced these isobars are. Very, very strong winds. So as this system pulls into Tuesday morning, Tuesday afternoon, and evening, goes into the northeast, we're going to bring with it heavier rains to the south, ice into this corridor, and very strong winds blowing the snow around on the backside. Meanwhile, our next deep kind of short wave cuts into California. You can see the precipitation. It's not the heavy onshore flow stuff, but look right here. That's where the upper level low is. You watch it circulate there. See that? Spread snow throughout the Four Corners states. And then what we get is, going into Wednesday, that's when we start to see the next ice storm showing up here. Snow around the Four Corners, but that colder air comes in on a big Arctic high, and the overrunning goes right over the top of it, and I want you to watch this area very carefully. Now, let's put all this together before I show you the individual model runs. Over the next week, we will expect to see extremely heavy rains from eastern Texas through Tennessee. There'll be an area in through here that'll pick up between 2 and maybe some locations over 5 inches of rainfall. Drier on the backside of it, drier in the Canadian prairie. We have better moisture finally coming into the west, but this is not the start of a miracle March, which is what we want to see. On the snow side of it, this is the European model's guidance for total snowfall through the next 7 days. So you can see it in the Four Corners states. Getting some snow in the Sierra Nevada, the Klamath Mountains, and here in the Cascades. This is from the first system, second system, and there's a third system here, but don't put too much stock in what you see right there. This is the European. This is what the 12Z GFS suggests. Very similar in the west, similar with our first system, and second. But again, it's a different scenario entirely for what's coming out of that third system. So why don't we go from there to ice, and then we'll get into this. The ice threat today, tomorrow, right in through here. But the big event that I'm most worried about stretches right in through this area. That's going to be midweek, like Wednesday, Thursday time frame. I would not be surprised if the National Weather Service issued ice storm warnings in this part of the country. I'm very, very concerned about this moving forward. I'd like to show you both models as an indication of what I'm concerned about here. Now, we're going to do this relatively quickly. We've already seen through this point, Wednesday midday. Okay, so that was system number 1, it's out. We've talked about it. System number 2 in both models, you can see where they're putting down the ice in the GFS. It's here in the European. It's being fed on warm, moist air, undercut by an Arctic air mass. So going from Thursday morning to Thursday afternoon and evening, Both models stretching out right into this area as the threat for ice. There's a little difference in the snow on the backside, little difference in the position of the ice, but you just need to watch this entire region. So this would go out to Thursday evening. We go forward into Friday morning, Friday afternoon, heavy snows moving to New England, and then we get into Friday night into Saturday morning, things clear out temporarily. See that big high pressure cell comes in. From there, if we just keep playing through the weekend, we see that the models are kind of pushing in another system. It's going to come right out of eastern Texas. The European has a flatter wave, more rainfall to the south. The GFS tightens it up pretty quickly, brings in more snow. Now, this is out there pretty far in the forecast. We'll have to see in the update on Thursday what it does end up producing for snow. But the European does eventually turn it over to snow. But can you see how the models have already diverged in the position of this system for this weekend? Let me come back to that next forecast video to show you the latest updates there. But getting into week 2, I do want to show you the flow pattern. The ridge is here. It's expected to keep moving in that direction, which brings in flow like this. And overall, that's convergent flow in the jet stream. So we see week 2 is a bit drier for much of the United States. But I believe that after we get through that first week of March, it's going to go back over quite active again. One thing's for sure is we're going to finish the month of February on a cold note. Take a look at this. Here's Monday's highs. We've already seen these. Tuesday into Wednesday. That Arctic air mass dives very quickly into the south, and this will be the area on Wednesday you need to watch very carefully for the potential of ice. See how cold the surface temperatures are? The upper level temperatures are well above freezing in this area. Well, the East Coast is the last holdout for the warm weather. There it is Thursday, and by Friday, this is it. It'll be right here in North Carolina, and then gone. That's the end of it. Now, day 5 through 10, we see that colder air exit, but the warmth building into Alaska is a key we need to keep an eye on here. Because by day 10 through 15, that could be where we finally build in the ridging we need over this part of the world to get better flow across the rest of the United States. But I don't think that's fully going to come into fruition until we get deep into the month of March. It's not going to be a miracle March for the West, but it's going to help return some moisture that's desperately needed. I'll finish with one last thing. I know there's a lot of attention being put on Europe right now, so I'd like to point out that north of the Black Sea in Ukraine into the Russian wheat belt here, very mild conditions are expected throughout much of the next 10 days. It's also expected to be drier throughout Ukraine over the next 10 days. So I want to keep an eye on that for you. Wrap it up there. Appreciate your attention. We'll talk to you on Thursday. Thank you.